Well, hello there, and welcome to a deadly analysis review of the French-Belgian horror film Raw, recently released here in the United States. Now, I actually saw this movie by driving 50 miles outside of where I live because there was no theater in Dallas that was showing it, and so I had to go to like a specialty cinema complex where I was like the only guy there, and it was like a really small room, and I'm there to watch cannibals and people eat other people. It was a very interesting experience. One could say a very raw experience. Now, this movie centers around a young college student, a veterinarian in training named Justine. Now, Justine has just arrived at vet school, where her older sister, Alexia, is also studying, but who's already a year or two ahead of her. Now, Justine, and indeed her entire family, are all vegetarians. However, in one of the hazing rituals that takes place at the school, she's forced to eat a rabbit kidney, which sort of messes her up. It begins a snowball of meaty desires, which ends up culminating in the consumption of human flesh, which is a little taboo. I don't know. And this desire sort of consumes her and gets intertwined with sexual impulses, and there's some sibling rivalry thrown into the mix. So take all of the normal teenage angst that you would expect during your first few days of college and sort of amp it up to a ridiculous and really disturbing level, and you have Raw. And this is definitely a body horror movie. And what I mean by that is that the film emphasizes graphic images of the human body being destroyed. In this case, eaten. There's a really graphic scene where a severed finger is like gnawed on really up close, and blood is slurped, and legs are munched on, right? So there's a lot of graphic, a lot of visceral stuff going on in the film. In some degree, it's a nod to Cronenberg, although I think this film is a little more in your face. So it's definitely a visceral movie. It's a graphically violent movie, to say the least. But one of the things I really liked about the movie and that I found really interesting is that I didn't draw from it any real distinct messages about like the morality of vegetarianism and meat eating. There just wasn't that much of that stuff in the film, which surprised me. I guess because I'm an American, I sort of have an expectation that if a film deals with issues like vegetarianism and cannibalism, that it's going to rely somewhat heavily on those themes throughout the course of the movie, but it didn't. It actually went a lot deeper than those issues, and I really respected that. Instead of exploring distinctions that you would think would be in this film, like vegetarianism and meat eating, the film relies really on the distinction between abstinence and indulgence, or self-denial and hedonism. That's what this movie is all about to me. Once Justine tastes meat for the first time, she goes through this tormenting transition where she breaks out in skin rashes and she has debilitating pain, and she sort of finds herself at the end of all of this in a very primal and animalistic place. She ends up losing her virginity, and you start to really see an unraveling of all self-restraint. Passions begin to get mixed, and Justine loses all of her inhibitions and goes from being this really reserved, kind of virgin vegetarian young girl to a really ravenous woman. Now, there's some really cool twists in the film, which I won't blow for you, but suffice it to say that the movie is very well acted. It's very artsy at times, which is usually a big turnoff for me, especially in horror films. I tend to be very left-brained, so any kind of artsy films, artsy horror films typically don't do it for me, but this movie got a pass. There's also a lot of room for analysis and interpretation in this film, which makes it sort of intellectually satisfying as well. It's not a dumb film, right? It's not like The Bye Bye Man or some low IQ jump scare stupid bullshit like that. It's a very sophisticated film that just so happens to be very brutal. I will say this though, the movie is extremely stressful. I felt a lot of anxiety when I was watching this movie. And it wasn't really even the cannibal stuff. It was really just the totality of Justine's hazing, her schooling, her social interactions, and ultimately her transformation that left me feeling very taxed and nerve-wracked by the end of the movie. But that's probably because I'm a little bitch, so that won't happen to you. In any event, this is a really good horror movie. You should go see it. It's not my favorite cannibal film. That will forever go to Ravenous, but it kept my interest. It made me think, and I actually left the theater feeling nauseated. I really can't think of a time where that's ever happened to me, so the movie definitely gets props for that. Now, we'll probably end up doing an entire analysis of the film on this channel, so if you like this review, make sure to stay tuned for the rest. So if you've seen the film, you agree or disagree with anything I've said, leave a comment below, send us a like. Check us out also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter At the Deadly Analysis Podcast, we basically review and analyze the philosophical underpinnings of good horror films here at this podcast. So take a look around, and thank you for watching this review.